The Magic Show is brought to you by StarCityGames.com, and check this out. On October 8th and 9th, the StarCityGames.com Open Series comes to Nashville, and this event is going to be huge. We're talking hundreds of players, over $14,000 in cash prizes, at least 18 players qualify for the Charlotte Invitational at the end of the year. Live coverage all day long courtesy of SCG Live, and as much Magic the Gathering as we can pack into one weekend. So make plans to join StarCityGames.com in Nashville, and we'll see you there.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Magic Show. Now we have been going through the entire Innistrad set review here with the one and only Gerry Thompson. We've talked about the white cards, the blue cards, and the black cards. Now today we are up on the red cards. And we are going to begin today with an awesome reprint in the form of Ancient Grudge.
I like it.
Ancient Grudge is so good.
It is good.
So good. Now for me, the Mondo combo is liquid metal coating.
That's cool.
It's cool, right?
Yeah.
Cute, neat. Probably not constructed worthy, but it's cute. It's going to be some sweetness at the kitchen table.
Yes.
But actually, I was reading an interesting sort of take on this card in Sealed, in that someone said that this is always main deckable. How do you feel about that?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Seems a little
I mean,
sketchy.
in theory, everyone always plays their equipment. They're good artifacts. But what if they just don't open any, you know?
Right. Or if they just don't, or if they have like one, right?
Yeah.
And they play their one, and you don't have your Ancient Grudge, or they play their one, and so your Ancient Grudge only gets used once. I mean, is it about maximum value for an Ancient Grudge?
I think so. And it's not even necessarily like all the equipment are things that you have to destroy. So you would want to board this in if they have an artifact that you definitely want to kill, but that might not even necessarily be the case.
Yeah. Up next is Ashmouth Hound, and for me, I really like this card because I feel it was a little pushed for a 2-mana 2/1.
Yeah.
To deal damage when it's blocked or when it's blocking. Like, seems good.
It is weird to have a defensive ability on a red card.
Yeah.
But he's literally on fire.
He is literally. Like, they wanted to make the boy on fire. And it's, you know, one of those cards that I kind of forgot dealt damage when it also blocks. And so don't forget that like I did. It was rough. So next up is the Balefire Dragon. Now, I had an issue with this because I felt the dragons didn't really fit Gothic Horror. What do you feel?
Makes sense to me. Has there been a set without a dragon, though?
I don't know.
There haven't been many.
There haven't been, I mean, there have been some, but I think it's been a long time since we've ever had sort of that issue, per se. Regardless, you know, is this one of those, like, ridiculously overpowered limited bombs?
Yeah, 7 mana is a lot.
Yeah.
You know, like 6 mana is pretty much the norm for a sweet dragon. 7 mana, like, better do something like this. Better win you the game.
Fair. I mean, it has to be answered for sure. So, Blasphemous Act, I love this card.
I think it's awesome.
This card did such good things for me at the pre-release.
Yeah, I mean, for constructed, it's probably worse than stuff like Slag Storm or maybe even Whip Flare, but it's cool that a card like this exists.
Yeah, I love how it deals the 13 damage, you know.
Yeah, just random, arbitrary number.
Sure, like 13 has to do with horror, why not? Yes, great. Blood-Crazed Neonate is another one of those vampires that, you know, they have this idea that every time they hit you, they're Slith Firewalkers.
Yeah.
It's the Slith Firewalker mechanic. How do you feel about that in terms of vampire design?
I think I like this better. I think this makes them more likely to be played and constructed, which, I don't know, that's kind of my primary thing. And I don't know if it makes more sense, like 10 or less life, or, you know, them getting more blood and them getting powerful, but I don't know.
But ultimately, you know, you can see that they're trying to make vampires work in various ways.
Yeah.
You know, they want to flavorfully explain what happens when a vampire gets you. And so this is, I guess, their way in this regard. So Brimstone Volley, one of the best red cards in the set.
Agreed.
If not the best, just for raw power. 3 mana, 5 damage. I mean, Stagger Shock dealt 4, and here we are at 5.
Yeah.
Got to work for a little bit.
Char, Flame Javelin, Stagger Shock, now this, like, it's getting there. You know, they took away Lightning Bolt, but they give you this. So red is still viable. It's been crushing Magic League.
Seems good with Goblin Grenade.
Yep.
Seems very powerful.
There's New Chandra,
Wow.
Reverberate.
Seems okay.
Lots of cool stuff you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Burning Vengeance is interesting to me because it's free. The ability.
Yeah.
Triggers for free.
Sort of like Slide more than Lightning Rift, but
Yeah. But ultimately, I feel. Do you think this is actually going to get anywhere in Constructor, or is it just a limited card?
I don't know. I've seen a few decks with like Think Twice and Desperate Ravings and just random stuff like that. It seems like it might be playable, especially in block. And again, it's another one of those things like as more cards come out, more things with flashback, that card gets better and better.
Right. Particularly, sort of more burn spells, because this sort of stacks on top of that.
Yep.
Particularly if you draw multiples. Charmbreaker Devils is next, and this is just one of those like cute limited things.
Yeah, this is the type of card I dream of for like a red-black all removal deck. Like that's the best finisher probably.
Yeah. Drop it and just start rebuying all your removal spells. Seems fantastic. Crossway Vampire, I love this guy because he'll fit right on your curve, and he'll make the right guy not be able to block and let you get in with your awesome.
Yeah, Goblin Shortcutter was often a 3-drop anyway, right?
Yeah.
And this makes you use all your mana every turn, a little more aggressive, so.
Yeah, a little bit better on the numbers, a 3-2 instead of a 2-1.
Yep.
Seems good. Now, Shortcutter was always great. Now, Curse of Stalked Prey is interesting because it's rare. Actually, didn't sort of notice that the first time I read it. I thought it was uncommon or common. But, can be very powerful.
You start with Kuldotha Rebirth, turn 2 this. I mean, Chapin wrote about that. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I think it's only good against decks that don't have blockers, really. But
Right. And I think people block these days.
yeah, there's a lot of creatures. It's
Yeah.
weird.
A lot of guys, and they are blocking. So this, it feels like they tried to push it as hard as they could for 2 mana. It's just 2 mana to make every creature in your deck turn on this way, but ultimately I don't know if it's actually going to get there.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't think so. Curse of the Nightly Hunt feels like a very limited card, It's nice to be able to force them to do things, but ultimately a little niche.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would even play it in limited. I mean, I guess maybe if I had a very aggressive deck or something.
Kind of reminds me of Lust for War-ish, that type of thing, but
Yeah.
it's like, makes it so their biggest guy can't block, but that had the added benefit of like dealing them damage too, so.
Right. Ultimately a little fringy.
Yeah.
Fringy. Now, Curse of the Pierced Heart. Now, I love a Haunted of Infinite Rage. I do.
Doesn't hit creatures. This is like Red's Invisible Stalker.
Really?
Yeah.
Meh. But not near as good.
Yeah. Doesn't sound very good when I put it like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. There's not 2.0. There's not a 0.5 in there. You can't equip a sword to this thing. It just deals the damage every turn. That's great. So Desperate Ravings is up next, and this is a card that seems to be really great with Burning Vengeance.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where, just by itself it seems okay.
It's all right. You got a fistful of lands, like cast this or flash it back. Seems fine. Like not necessarily a Think Twice, but could be better.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that it can fill your graveyard in some ways, but ultimately it's a red draw spell, and those are extremely rare.
Agreed.
Yeah, and very good. Now, Devil's Play, how do you feel about this guy?
This card's good.
Yeah?
Like, I can't see anyone beating this in Limited. And in Constructed, I mean, there's been some fireballs that have been played. Banefire, Demon Fire, and now this. And this certainly seems just as good as those, if not better.
Yeah, in the green-red, maybe ramp deck type stuff?
Even just in a red deck, it doesn't seem that bad.
Just running it. I mean, and it's much like the Shrine. I love the Shrine in that it sort of just ticks up. And
Yeah.
you're going to get hurt. And this is like, it lives in your graveyard, and you can just sit there and count your mana, and eventually you're going to be able to just get them.
Yeah, this seems like a fine 1 or 2 of card to play. If you draw it and you're not flooded, maybe 3 mana, 2 damage, whatever. And then if the game keeps going on from there, it has flashback. You don't want to draw too many of them, but as a 1 or 2 of it seems really good.
Sounds great. So Falcon Wrath Marauders, Flores had a very interesting article where he compared this to Demigod of Revenge, and that it will kill them in 4 turns, but that doesn't make it Demigod of Revenge.
Yeah, Demigod was good because it couldn't die, and it had 4 toughness off the bat.
Right.
But this is still fine if you're in the market for like a Wrathy Dragon, some sort of big flyer against like a green-white creature deck or something, then maybe this is the guy that you go to, but probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the problem is that, in your red deck, you're going to be like, here's 5 mana, and what I'm going to do with it is deal 2 damage.
Yeah.
And that's not super impressive.
Also, for 5 mana, you can go Sword Equip. So, that's tough.
Yeah, just like equip a sort of Worm Piece or something and get them, because that seems scarier. Now, Feral Ridgewolf is, another sort of bread and butter card, but an awesome card for me because this is a card that helps your werewolves. You're supposed to have mana sinks that you can do. so that you don't feel like you've skipped your turn in order to flip all your werewolves.
That is true.
And this gives you the ability to just put the mana in there and do something with it, and then say go, and then turn over all your guys.
And it's a wolf too, so it's like they're telling you.
Yeah, it just fits right in that deck right there, however you want it to be. So, Führer of the Bitten actually discussed this, P. Sully had discussed this today a little bit in his article, where he had said that, a 1 mana enchantment, +2/+2 is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like, it's rare, I feel, that they've pushed a creature enchantment this far.
It's kind of like a Goblin Guide.
Yeah.
1 mana, 2 damage, haste. Like, obviously very conditional. You need another guy. If they kill your one guy, it kills both of your guys. So, like, it's definitely worse. It's really sketchy, but, as far as, like, that power level,
right,
like, it's there.
Yeah, in terms of, 1-drop, 2-drop, or whatever, you can 2 for 1 yourself, which is, of course, any drawback for a creature enchantment, but seems pretty good. Geist Flame, we were talking about this sort of, in what sort of scenarios would you play this in Constructed?
There's a lot of 1 toughness guys running around, like a lot of green-white elf decks. There's Llanowar's Birds of Paradise, Avacyn's Pilgrim, and I've seen that fueling like some Mentor the Meek decks. That seems like a good card for the red deck, where they just like clear your blocker, hit you with a guy, turns on the vampires that get bigger when they deal you damage. But comparing it to Devil's Play, it's like they both have the same flashback if you're mono red. It's like 4 mana, flashback, deal 1 damage.
Right.
And the initial cost is 1 heavier, but like you get so much more versatility off of Devil's Play, so I'd probably rather just play that card.
Fair. So Handweir Watchkeep is another interesting card. I'm glad it exists, and that ultimately it just kind of sits out there and will be a 5/5. And will attack every turn thereafter, which is pretty good and pretty scary.
Yeah, and a 3 mana 1/5 is not that bad anyway.
Yeah.
So
and for red, of all the of all the colors, as it were, it's interesting that red gets a 3 mana 1/5. Harvest Pyre is a fantastic limited card. It's a removal spell.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to work a little bit to get some cards in your graveyard. I found, because I actually played with this past weekend, and I expected it to be like an all-star, but sometimes you actually struggle to get 2 or 3 damage out of it. But, if it's in the early game and they flip over some really powerful werewolf, and you're like, I can't fill my graveyard fast enough, whatever.
Yeah, and you can only really afford to play 1 or 2 of these. If you ever draw 2, it's like, oh man.
Yeah, like the first one's going to sort of circumvent the next one.
Yep.
Yeah. So Heretics Punishment, this is a very interesting. Another one of those like wacky red cards.
Yeah.
They're like, let's just make something crazy and flip over some cards and deal you damage equal to the converted mana cost. Like, it's I wonder if, it feels like they've almost like, thrown darts at like random things that red cards can do. Like, what random things can this one do? Sure. So next up is Infernal Plunge, which, is a ritual.
Culling of the Week.
Ish.
I've actually seen this card in some standard deck lists.
Really?
Burning Vengeance, Past in Flames, some Memnites, Timely Reinforcements. It looked kind of interesting, a little underpowered. Basically a block deck,
Right.
which is never really a good sign for standard. But
Yeah. But block decks eventually become standard decks, I feel, in many ways. But ultimately, it's, this is one of those cards that I'm glad it exists, but ultimately I'm glad it's not that highly powered at all.
Yep.
It will be kept safely in check for a variety of reasons.
They will not have to be banned in Modern.
Yes. So Instigator Gang is next, and I feel like, man, this card is like right there. This card is right there on Constructed Playable.
It's close.
It's so close.
But then, compare it to Hero of Oxidridge,
And it's not close.
not very close.
No.
That card's a little bit better, but, those cards eventually rotate, and then you have to go back and look at the cards that you do have, and
Right.
maybe this thing will be good. Again, maybe block. Like Moon Mist.
Absolutely. For me, I feel like, because the thing with Instigator Gang is that if he flips over,
They're dead.
they're dead. It's not close. So when you have a 5/5 that turns into an 8/5 trampler and all your guys are huge, and like, that's insane. Like, they pump the crap out of this thing when it's flipped. Now, if there is a more powerful, or there's an easier way to flip cards with the next set, or maybe the third set, maybe this guy could get there. But I feel right now, when you're up against Hero of Oxidridge,
Doesn't compare very favorably.
it doesn't work great. So, into the Maw of Hell.
Cool card. 13 damage. Again, started with Shivan Meteor, now it's just all over the place.
So sweet. Just like, I love that this spell exists. Like, the name is amazing. Art's fantastic. Just so good. Rawr. So good. All right, so Kesuk Wolf, one of those cards that they give you to pump some mana into so you don't feel so bad in your werewolf deck.
Again, a wolf.
A wolf, to let you know where that belongs.
Mm-hmm.
Crew and Outlaw is one of those cards that is a solid card by itself, but ultimately turns into like this really scary 3/3 double striking, can't be blocked except by 2 guys thing, that will kill you.
Yeah.
And quickly. So I'm not really sure how to evaluate it beyond I think it's going to be fantastic and limited. And I don't really think it's going to get there in constructed, but
if you do have some sort of werewolf deck, this fits on the curve, right? There haven't been very many 3-drops, and 3 mana 2/2 first strike, that's fine.
it's standard.
And it's another one of the things that it flips and they're dead.
It flips, and good luck with that double striking, buddy, and blocking it in any way. Night Revelers, 5 mana 4/4s, marginal abilities.
Yeah.
Sounds like a limited card.
Yes.
Will be a fine man at your 5 slot. We'll do work.
That's about all we got.
Man, I wish we had better. Just ain't got nothing. Past in Flames, buddy, is going right after Nightbird's Clutches.
Yep. That Past in Flames is good. We'll get to it.
We're getting there. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Nightbird's Clutches feels like Feeling of Dread for red.
Yeah.
But doesn't make you play 2 colors, and still gives you all the falter effects that you're looking for.
And red needs that more than blue and white, I would say.
Yeah.
So.
And blue and white are more about the tempo, and red is more about getting through all the blockers. Anyway, so flavorfully, or in terms of mechanically, it works perfectly, and just seems like a really nice spell. It's like maybe a 1-of in your limited deck.
I don't know what it has to do with birds, or why they're red birds, or what, but...
Or what that bird is doing. Sure. All right, buddy.
But...
Go.
Past in Flames. I think it's awesome in Legacy. Seems like it could just replace Ad Nauseam. Seems like it could be good in High Tide.
Wow.
Does a lot of sweet things. Awesome with Intuition.
Does some work in High Tide.
Yeah, but you can mostly just cast Time Spiral also.
Yeah.
But Burning Wish, there's just a lot of cards that this works well with.
Yeah. It's one of those for me it's like you read that card and you're like, this is so dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I don't know how, but I know they're going to do something really scary. Someone is going to do something scary with this card. And no one's going to see it coming, and it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, and unfortunately, these are not the type of decks that I'm familiar with, so I can't really design this type of thing myself. I have some ideas, but...
Right. And I think a lot of people just look at it and they just go, man, that's just scary.
But I don't know how to make it perfect.
Right. But how do you break it? I don't get it.
I'll wait for someone else to do it. That'll be fine.
And then we'll figure it out. Yeah. So Pitchburn Devils, it bolts when it dies.
Yeah. Snid.
Yeah. Good man. Solid limited creature. Rage Thrower, 6 mana 4/2. Now, he's got the low toughness so he can die, but I like the fact that he doesn't have a May on his text, so he's guaranteed to deal damage whenever anything else dies. Pretty fantastic if you have any sort of sack outlet, of course.
Yeah, it's just a pretty good way to finish him off.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those expensive uncommons that does a lot. And there have been plenty of those over the years. There was the one, I believe it was in Besieged, or the 6 mana you sack an artifact and it deals 4 Pyrokinesis.
Flame Fiend.
Flame Fiend.
Yeah, but that card is much better than this.
I agree, but it's in that vein of 6 mana, expensive uncommon in red that can just take over the game by itself if left unchecked. Yeah. Which I think is nice. Rockish Air. Some people are kind of excited about this guy.
Yeah.
Turning on more vampires.
Kind of like a Lord, but got to work for it again. And we need some Lacerators back, some Pulse Trackers, but...
Yeah, I feel like this guy is going to get a lot better with a couple more sets.
Yeah.
For sure. So Reckless Waif, I like this card a lot. Is this Wild Nacatl 2.0?
I mean, it's hard to get as good as Nacatl is, but this card's definitely fun.
Yeah. It's no Goblin Guide, and I recognize that.
Yeah.
But I know that it is probably as close as they could get it to Goblin Guide.
It's just a different thing, It's still gonna be really tough to beat if they're on the play and start with it, but I think I'm a little happier facing down this than Goblin Guide or Nacatl.
I agree, because like the 3 Reckless Wave draw is never as scary as the 3 Goblet God draw.
That's true.
So, Riot Devils, heyo. We're going to spend some time on these guys. Man.
Thankfully, they have all this flavor text.
Don't they now? Devils or demons are an earthly desire made flesh. Blah, 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 blah. 3 mana, 2/3.
Useless.
Rolling Temblor. Yes, an actual answer to Geist of St. Traft. That guy is nuts.
That guy is nuts. I don't know if it's going to make me want to play this card. Still have Whip Flare and Slag Storm.
Yeah, pretty sure it's not going to overtake any Pyroclasm-esque effects,
No.
but a flashback Pyroclasm doesn't seem terrible.
It's good to have.
Nice that it exists.
Yes.
Another one of those, right? Seems, I mean, in terms of limited, how would you sort of rate that at this point? Because this, I mean, this is a very powerful, seems very good.
Is blue-red viable? Can we draft flyers
I think so.
and red cards?
It does say each creature without flying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, X2 and X1 flyers in blue-red that would love to live through this.
Yeah, but if they have flyers, then it kind of sucks too. But
Because, like, white has a lot of good flyers, and that would be really awkward against a white-green deck,
yeah,
You may get the green guys, but all their white flyers just wreck you. Scourge of Gyre Reach. That's an interesting card. 5 mana, 3/3.
fine for limited.
Probably going to be a 5/5 most of the time.
Yeah.
And limited, of course, like we're just talking about limited for this type of guy. But
It does kind of suck that if they have a 4/4 and you have a 5/5 of this thing, they can just block and like kill it. So it might have like a little less toughness than you think it does, but it's still pretty big.
right, and that's a good point. Like when you're attacking into their 4/4 with your 5/5, to recognize that things can change.
Yeah.
And you can lose your guy. Scourge Dag Cultist is one of those cards from Duels of the Planeswalkers that they accidentally spoiled because they left it in the files, guys. And I'm sure Wizards has learned a very important lesson to never leave anything in any data files.
This is good with Murder of Crows, another card that was spoiled.
Ooh, yeah.
But I think both of those cards are pretty good on their own.
I was going to say,
honestly.
if you got an air elemental that's looting,
Yeah.
this guy next to the air elemental that's looting, you're probably doing okay anyway. Stromkirk struts a lot. I'm sorry, I was over here.
This guy knows he's a baller. Just looking at his picture.
It's just like, just the man's got some bravado. Damn.
He's being excellent.
What?
What?
You gotta work it. You gotta work
He's
it,
working
man.
it.
He's working it. You're not
He's-
working it.
I don't have to.
Oh, I see how it is. How good is this guy?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
He's no Slith Firewalker. I knew Slith Firewalker.
I played back in those days.
Yeah. But he's still good. He's the other one drop aside from Reckless Wave, I think that the red decks are gonna play, and like maybe some Furnace Scamp action. But
It's funny because Patrick Sullivan was talking about how when you run Reckless Wave, you can actually kind of kick yourself in the foot because you're running all these 1-drops,
Yeah.
and then the Reckless Wave will flip, and then on your turn you want to play 2 1-drops, but you can't because you'll
Or-
flip over your own Reckless.
or like kill a blocker and play another guy or something. And yeah,
Right. It's this really sort of awkward, strange interaction. That's not terrible. It's just this thing you have to be aware of, and that I actually feel is going to give Stromkirk sort of the nod every time because you don't have that randomly get screwed over by your own spells that you can with other.
yeah. I think the Noble's probably better, just because it's more consistent. But I think you still play them both.
Fair. So moving on, we have Tormented Pariah. Now, this is one of those cards that is like, for me, it's like the bread and butter werewolf card. It's when they came up with werewolves, they said, we got to make it work on the most standard, basic, obvious thing. And we'll see this in green, but this is, a nice example of the 3/2 for 4 mana that turns into the 6/4.
Yeah, just very vanilla, plain, but it works.
Yeah, it works, and it shows you that it works. And when you play with this type of card, you're like, oh man, like my 3/2 just got super sweet.
Just doubled up.
Literally doubled, and that is an awesome feeling. Traitorous Blood is very much in the active aggression sort of vein, but you feel is better. Is that correct?
This is the best one, I think. You can play active aggression, and that's a little more defensive. You can take their guy and block their other guy with it because it's instant. But this one, giving trample, is so huge. Like you take a Titan, you want to deal damage that turn.
Right.
So
Yeah, being able to like steal their Sun Titan, I think is sweet because it will still trample, which it never ever does, and will still give you all this value.
yeah, and then they can't just like chump block and
Right.
and then you're still facing down this Titan. At least this way, they're taking a bunch of damage too.
Absolutely. So Vampiric Fury is a card that I feel is probably unplayable and sealed.
Yeah, it seems like you're going to be split with your tribes.
It's just one of those that you just, you don't want to run it in sealed because you're just going to have that problem where you have a human or you have a spirit and you got this card in hand and you're like, I lose now because I can't deal an extra 2 damage or I can't trade with that guy or whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe this will be good enough to make some draft decks. Maybe you get to have like a vampire theme or something, but...
Yeah, I mean, Black-Red Vampires in draft, maybe it might take another set before this type of card really gets to shine, but one of those cards that I'm glad it exists, but it's also a really interesting seal tester. Village Ironsmith is another one of those vanilla type, it's French vanilla, I believe, as they call it, which is the vanilla with one rando evergreen keyword.
Yeah, first strike. It's a good one, definitely, but...
Yeah, it's one of those that I was, if there was one werewolf, I was just like, whatever, this guy turned out to be better than I expected.
Yeah.
First strike is very relevant, 3/1 first strike is even more relevant, and he's not that hard to flip over. So, those are all of our red cards. We have went through every single one.
Pretty exciting.
So, in the red, sort of the all-stars, we have some Strong Kirk Noble, we have some Past in Flames that can do some stuff, we have some Brimstone Volley that could be burning people out.
Devil's Play, also pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe Burning Vengeance.
Yeah, possibly. Fair enough. So, we will be back here tomorrow with all of the green cards. So, for Evan Irwin, Gerry Thompson, tapping the cards so you don't have to.
I always like the fatties.